From the microbes in our soil and cells of the human body,
You're making it sound like we've found a cure for cancer.
to exploring the furthest reaches of outer space and the secrets of our deepest oceans.
We're going on a deep dive.
We continue to celebrate Irish science.
This week on 10 Things to Know About, we're investigating cancer. I find out about new technologies for breast cancer screening. Jonathan looks at exciting developments in potential cancer treatments. But first, Aoibhinn gets to the heart of the matter.
Cancer comes in many shapes and sizes, and how it affects the body varies greatly. I'm meeting Averil Power, CEO of the Irish Cancer Society, to find out more. Hi, Averil. Lovely to meet you. How are you doing?
Cancer is more than one disease. There's so many different types of cancer with different causes, different treatments. But one thing that they have in common is that they all arise from abnormal changes in our cells. So the cells within our body are replicating all the time, with new ones replacing old ones. And sometimes as part of that process, things go wrong, and cells become abnormal. Those cells may divide and replicate and spread to different parts of the body. And it's how those cells interact over time with each other and with other parts of the body that can go on to cause cancer.
How prevalent is cancer in Ireland?
Well, this year, 40,000 Irish people will be diagnosed with cancer, which is a huge number, and the number is increasing all the time. But 4 in 10 cancers are preventable. And that's why it's so important that people are equipped with the knowledge that they need to improve their lifestyles, things around maintaining a healthy weight, exercising, not smoking, managing your alcohol intake, all simple measures that each of us can take to reduce our risk of cancer.
Breast cancer is the second most common cancer affecting women in Ireland, with 3,100 women diagnosed every year. Breast cancer screening aims to reduce the number of deaths by finding and treating cancer cells at a much earlier stage. I'm in Malahide to meet Dorothy Conaghan, who understands the importance of early diagnosis as much as anyone.
It was a bit of a shock, as it is, I'm sure, for everybody. It's not an easy thing to take on board. In a way, you're faced with your own mortality. I was going for my regular breast check mammograms, and in retrospect, I was very lucky because I had no symptoms, no lump, nothing. And the screening showed up that I actually had calcifications that were invasive. And I went for more tests and biopsies, and they found, look, this is actually gone to the lymph nodes. This is something we need to extract, take it out, and as a sort of a backup insurance, if you like, I went through chemotherapy and radiotherapy.
What was the most difficult thing about going through the treatment for your cancer, Dorothy?
The prospect of losing my hair. And I think for a woman that's a big thing, and it really can't be underestimated. I got wonderful advice from the breast nurse, and she'd said, Dorothy, as soon as you're over your surgery, and it's about 10 days later, 2 weeks later, go shopping for a wig. And I found a wonderful shop in Kimmage, and I made an appointment, and they were used to people. I didn't have to explain anything. And my hairdresser, Anne, came with me. And she knew what was going to suit me. And my daughter came. So we had a day out. And we had a laugh, trying on all these wigs. The only advice I give to people is, it grows back again. And in fact, my hair is growing back with a little bit of a curl in it. And I actually like it.
And it's lovely, I have to say.
So, you know, every cloud has a silver lining, literally. Nobody is ready for this. But I think the big word is ahead. Breast check gets ahead of a diagnosis that may not be as treatable. We live in a country that does an every 2-year breast check mammogram for free. It's hard to get your head around it. You don't want to know, but it can save an awful lot of problems and suffering later on.
Screening is essential. The best chance you have of surviving cancer is to spot it early. For example, with testicular cancer, if it's spotted at stage 1, 19 out of 20 people will be fully cured. But if it's not picked up until stage 4, only 1 out of 10 men will be alive 5 years later. So that's an incredible difference. And that's why it's really important for people to take the opportunity of free screening through cervical check, breast check and the bowel screen programme, and also to talk to your doctor if you notice anything unusual.
Dorothy's experience of overcoming breast cancer is hugely positive and is due in no small part to the incredible advances we're making in our understanding and treatment of cancers.
I'm in Galway to meet Martin O'Halloran, who is developing a safer and less invasive breast cancer screening technology. How important is breast screening in terms of early detection?
I would say it's crucially important. A recent study in the UK looked at, what is the actual benefit to patients of the screening programme? And they found that each year breast screening was saving about 1,300 lives in the UK.
Wow.
So I think if you were to look at the stats here in Ireland, you'd see a similar effect.
And tell me, actually just spell out, how does mammography actually work?
Essentially, the breast is placed between two plates, and ionizing radiation is transmitted through the breast. And regions of high density within the breast show up as lighter regions in the resultant image. Now, because breast tissue tends to be more dense than healthy tissue, it shows up as a bright spot in the image. Two of the challenges associated with X-ray imaging are, one, that it doesn't work as well in younger women who have naturally more dense breast tissue. So in those situations, it's harder to detect tumours. And secondly, there are regions of the upper breast and close to the chest wall that are difficult to image with X-ray mammography.
As many women will appreciate, one of the biggest issues with current X-ray imaging methods is the discomfort that's involved in breast compression, which is required to produce a clear and sharp image. Martin and his colleagues at NUI are researching new technologies that could ultimately remove the need for this uncomfortable process.
So what we're doing now is trying to address those challenges with a new technology. So we're developing a technology called microwave imaging. Rather than relying on a density contrast in tissues to detect cancer, we're looking at a contrast in electrical properties. So the unique aspect of microwave imaging is that it doesn't have the problem of density that's associated with X-ray mammography, but also it doesn't require compression of the breast.
And when I hear microwave imaging, I think of microwaves being a radiation source and being a risk in themselves.
Sure, and that's kind of a common question that we get asked, but if you think of your mobile phone, essentially your mobile phone is transmitting microwave energy, but really low power and really safe microwave energy. So we're using that same technology in our breast imaging device.
So Martin, what is this?
So essentially this is a prototype similar to the clinical system that we're testing with patients. This will ultimately be incorporated into a bed where the patient will lie down on, and the breast will essentially fall within this cavity. And what we have here is a number of microwave sensors that transmit the microwave signal into the breast, and then any reflected signals from a tumour are captured by all of the sensors. And our role, as well as developing the hardware, is we develop software which convert these sensor readings into a readable image of the breast, where regions of high conductivity, which correlate with tumours, show up as bright images. One of the key selling points of this technology is the ability to identify correctly women who don't have cancer and to avoid unnecessary biopsies and all of the distress that comes with that.
So this technology will help people who have that month of waiting between being told that they have something, having a biopsy, waiting for the results. This will hopefully eliminate all that stress and worry for them and their families.
Yes, that's exactly it. Being able to correctly classify healthy women is almost as important as being able to detect the disease.
So where did the idea of using microwaves to create an image come from?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So in the late 90s, a lot of researchers were using this type of technology to detect non-metallic landmines. And then I think a group in Bristol University said, well, maybe we can take the same technology and apply it to medical imaging. And they were one of the pioneering groups developing this technology for breast imaging.
Martin is collaborating with French medical device company MVG and Michael Kerin, director of the National Breast Research Institute, to conduct Irish clinical trials of a new microwave imaging device.
Galway is the largest breast cancer centre in the country. We look after about 600 new breast cancer women per year out of the total of about 3,000 in the country.
And who are you looking to recruit for the trial?
So in the first instance, we're going to recruit 30 women who've had breast biopsies, 15 of whom will have cancer and 15 of whom will have benign disease. This prototype system has two different parts to it. This is the optical scanner, which measures the dimensions of the breast, which is done first. And then the other machine, which is the microwave breast imager, allows us to identify the characteristics of the tumour using the microwave breast imaging technology.
And you're hoping that these prototypes will be able to tell the information that you know already?
We're going to get very valuable information in the early stages to compare, for example, whether the breast density has an effect or the breast size has an effect or the type of cancer that people have an effect from the point of view of the microwave properties and how it's picked up.
And for women sitting at home listening intently, when do you expect to see technology like this rolled out and the mammograph consigned to history?
I'm not sure we'll be able to confine the mammogram to history anytime soon. It's the best available test we have at present, but I'm hoping that this will be able to complement it and in certain cases potentially replace it.
So you've gotten to the point where you're actually about to embark on a clinical trial, which I imagine is pretty exciting.
Very. It's the purpose of having built a building like the Lamb Institute here.
Having the clinical research facility and translational medical device laboratory in one building means that researchers, clinicians and medical staff work together and interact on a daily basis. And
do you go to Martin with your idea, or does he come to you with his idea?
We have a mutually beneficial arrangement in place where we chat and you never know who'll come up with the idea or hatch the plan.
We often say here in the lab that about 75% of medical device technology fails on that final step from the bench to the clinic. So what we try and do by embedding ourselves in the hospital is address some of those weak points early on, engage with clinicians, get them to feed into the design.
As opposed to a doctor going, sure, this is no good to me. You're like, I've just spent my whole 5 years doing a PhD on it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's something that we're aware has a huge impact to women and has an impact to their families. We've been working on this technology for the last almost 2 decades now. So after all this time, it's something really positive and something we're really proud of.
30 years ago, if you got a cancer diagnosis, you just had a 3 in 10 chance of survival. Most people didn't make it. Today, that's 6 out of 10. We have new medicines being discovered all of the time. Improvements in radiotherapy, for example, mean that we're now able to, with 4D laser beams, target very specific areas for radiotherapy, whereas previously you had to blast an entire area with huge side effects for people. Oral chemotherapy will mean that in future more people will be getting chemotherapy in the comfort of their own home. So the treatments are getting better and better all the time, and that's thanks to investment in research.
Naked mole rat is a walking contradiction. It's small and almost blind. It lives its entire life underground. It looks like a walking sausage, and yet is neither true mole nor rat. But despite these ill-fitting characteristics, one thing that the naked mole rat excels at is staying cancer-free. To date, having studied thousands of naked mole rats, scientists are yet to find evidence of cancer in wild populations, leading to intense cancer research on this rather reclusive animal. The secret to its ability to avoid cancer appears to lie with a sugar called high molecular mass hyaluronan. This is a complex sugar and is secreted from cells in its body and ends up packing into the spaces in between cells. Crucially, this prevents cells from overcrowding and forming cancers. Now, while this sugar is also found in humans, where it helps to lubricate joints, in the naked mole rat, each molecule of the sugar is 5 times larger. This allows it to accumulate in very high cancer-stopping volumes. And as if that wasn't enough, Naked mole rats also defy all laws of aging, living for more than 30 years when their tiny body size means that they should live for just a fraction of that. Cancer-free and long-lasting youth. Small prices to pay for spending your entire life naked. See you next time.
In 2018, a Nobel Prize was awarded for exciting discoveries in harnessing the power of the immune system to fight cancer. It's an area of particular interest to Luke O'Neill from Trinity College Dublin. Luke, you're a professor of immunology. So how does our immune system work?
It's the most wonderful thing, Jonathan. It fights infection in our body. Every day, 1 billion cells, called T cells, kill the infection. They kill viruses, they kill bacteria, and defend you against these horrible germs, and you survive. Without them, we wouldn't be here. We'd be dead from infections.
So what has that got to do with cancer, and why are we at the canal?
Well, exactly. Cancer is a horrible disease, Jonathan. Tumours grow and kill us. Big, huge death rate in Ireland still from this. We're waking up the immune system to kill tumours. That's the biggest breakthrough in cancer treatment in 50 years. And the canal's a great analogy, as we'll see, you know. Well, imagine the infection is downstream in a canal, for example, and the immune system senses that, opens the gates, and now it rushes in, clears the infection, and guess what? The gates close then, and you get better.
So our immune system is essentially laying in wait for the signal to unleash all hell. It clears the infection, and then it closes. But with cancer, cancer has a key to the gate.
Cancer keeps that gate closed very cunningly, and the immune system never gets in, and the tumour grows and grows and grows and kills you eventually. And that gate is what these new discoveries are all about. Could you open that gate and attack that tumour was the hypothesis 15 years ago, and guess what is happening? Wonderful discovery, and new drugs are being made that do just that.
Around the world, new drugs are being developed that act like a crank to open the gate and allow the immune system through to fight cancerous cells. So you're saying that our immune system has always had the power to kill cancer, but it just has never been unleashed?
Always there waiting to do its job, and it can't because the gates are closed in many ways. Open the gates, and now it can do its job.
One of the most exciting immune therapy treatments is called CAR T-cell therapy, and it involves removing specific types of immune cells, T cells, from patients and changing them in the lab so they will attack cancer cells when reintroduced into the body. I'm in London to meet Professor Martin Pule, who grew up in Dublin and studied at UCD, and is now leading clinical trials of this promising new treatment.
In the beginning, the CAR T-cell field was a very small community of researchers that were considered to be a little bit eccentric, to be honest, because the treatment was quite far-fetched. But I think the thing that really convinced us that this treatment could work is that if you put these CAR T-cells into just a Petri dish with some tumour cells, and you watch them moving around, attacking the cancer cells and growing, and it's sort of a relentless onslaught. I think they were all convinced that we saw these kind of very simple experiments that actually could work in patients. Nature has given us a fantastic toolkit. If you imagine these T-cells as little robots running around our body trying to find virally infected cells, they can make copies of themselves whenever they see a problem. They go to places where the body is telling them there's a problem. So it's an amazing toolkit. So the only problem is they don't recognize cancer cells. So what we do is we take these little robots out of the patient and we reprogram them. And if you think about the program that runs a cell, it's actually the DNA inside it. So what we do is we make small bits of DNA with new bits of computer program inside them, put that DNA into these little T-cell robots, grow them a little bit outside the lab, and then put them back into the patient in a drip. Once these cells go back into the patient, then they move around the patient. Rather than now looking for infected cells, now they're looking for cancer cells. And when they find them, they recognize them, they kill them. And even better than that, they actually make copies of themselves when they recognize cancer cells. So they're there hanging around for very long periods of time. And then they also call in other bits of the immune system to help them in the fight.
Amazing. To date, CAR T-cell therapy has mainly targeted leukemias and lymphomas as they're very well understood cancers. And though it's exciting, it's important to acknowledge the early limitations of the treatment. Like all medical research, it's a long game. But Martin is leading the largest CAR T-cell program in Europe, which is running 9 clinical trials.
The clinical studies, for the most part, are early stage clinical studies, what we call phase 1 clinical studies. And we're exploring a lot of different aspects of CAR T-cell treatment, from trying to treat different kinds of leukemias and lymphomas, to also trying to treat some solid tumours. And also we're exploring different ways of manufacturing T-cells to try and make manufacturing, for example, a little bit easier and simpler.
What sort of patients are currently undergoing these sort of trials?
For the most part, chimeric antigen receptor studies in cancer are for patients with relapsed refractory disease. So these are patients who've been through conventional treatment, who have no other standard treatment or salvage type treatment that can cure them of their disease.
Participants on the trials undergo a special medical procedure where they're connected to a machine which extracts their blood and separates out the white blood cells. These blood cells are then sent to a manufacturing lab where they're re-engineered before being transfused back into the body through an intravenous drip.
And the sort of things that happen are actually very, very interesting, because what happens resembles really what you might get with a very severe viral infection. So the T cells go in, they slowly start to grow inside the patient, so you might be able to detect them in the blood of the patient. And then often patients get temperatures. And sometimes actually they can get quite sick because their immune system is really very, very heavily activated. And then after that, sort of things slow down, and the amount of CAR T cells in the blood might drop down, and the patient might start feeling better. Then that sort of period where the T cells are getting very, very excited might take 2 or 3 weeks.
Is there a hope that this CAR T therapy, once proven to be successful, could actually be used to tackle other types of cancers apart from things like lymphoma?
Yes, there's a huge amount of interest of bringing CAR T-cell treatment into solid cancers. And that's a little bit more challenging because we have to be a bit clever about what we target on the cancer. And also the cancers are more complicated. One cancer cell might be more different to another. And also the solid cancers tend to put up better defenses against the immune system than leukemias and lymphomas. My personal feeling is that where we are with CAR T-cell treatment in solid cancer is kind of where we were with leukemia and lymphoma about 7 or 8 years ago. Ultimately, what we want to do is to try and cure all cancers. We're trying to make CAR T-cells that are effective treatments for as wide a range of cancers as possible. And ultimately, what we want to do is to get rid of chemotherapy and bone marrow transplantation.
With breakthroughs being made all the time, harnessing the immune system to fight cancer could be the next big step to defeating the disease.
But the great hope is that this may be the biggest thing, and that all the meetings I go to on oncology, they're all jumping up and down. This is the best thing ever. Before this discovery, pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, ovarian, death sentence. Now, for the first time ever, we have a way to stop that, hopefully, and that's what a great future is for this.
That's our 10 things to know about cancer, and it's the end to another series of digging, diagnosing and diving to shine the spotlight on the latest Irish scientific research.